Hello, I'm Pastor Joe Murrell, Pine Valley Community Church, and thank you for giving me an opportunity just to speak with you a couple of minutes. We're living in a crazy time, a different time, an uncertain time, and want to share just a little bit about where we are as a church and what we're up to, what we're doing, the way we see things that are going on in this world. Since COVID-19 hit our world, I've started to read a book, and it was on my bookshelf for about 10 years, and I've never read it. It's called X Events, The Collapse of Everything, and it's a world, meaning X Events. What it's talking about is extreme events that are world-changing events, catastrophic type of events that could, but in fact the author says will certainly happen at some point in our world. And the challenge that the author brings out that kind of sticks with me is that these events are uncertain. You can't predict when one of them is going to happen, and a pandemic is one of about a dozen events that he mentions in the book that are world-changing, destructive, devastating world events. And with the dawn of COVID-19, especially with things being shut down the way that they are, but also just thinking of those who are on the front lines and the things that are going on, those that are working on hospitals, working in hospitals, those that are building hospitals, those that are shipping medical supplies or trying to lead cities, or just all the things that are happening, developing tests, possible medicines, and even those with the very difficult task of burying the dead. There's an opportunity for reality to sink in to us that this world maybe is not as much of a predictable place as we once thought it was, and that it can be dangerous, and life is far more fragile than we usually think. And maybe even for some, old and young alike, there are questions of purpose and meaning, of life and death. And this is a challenge in our culture because we're a culture that likes to ignore death or tries to push it to the margin so that we don't have to think about it. And our lives, are usually so busy. There's so many activities going on. There's trips down the hill. There are different things that we're doing. There are pressures and commitments that just are a part of our regular lives that kind of keep us busy, or we could say even own us, that we don't have time to think. But this makes me think of a Doobie Brothers song that I've always liked. It keeps you running. And that's really a picture of what our life often is like. Our lives are usually busy. And so this is quite a change for us and what's taking place. And with the slowdown with COVID-19, that brings us back to the consideration that life is far more fragile, and we as humans are far more needy than we usually like to acknowledge or even admit. And I remember the first time that I came to this realization myself. It was when I was 10 years old, and my sister was in a terrible accident and left severely head injured and unconscious for months. And that was what I could call a turning point that changed my life. And this brings us now to our time with COVID-19. These challenges that we are facing, they are an opportunity for significant, healthy, and good changes in our lives. And that brings us to the question, is there any hope for our world? And if there is, what is that hope? Because there has to be something good that is coming if we're going to be able to have significant and healthy and good changes in our lives. Well, we're going to talk about some of that hope this Sunday and how we can respond in ways that this becomes a good turning point for us. For the last little while as a church, we have been at the end of the Gospel of Mark that's in the Bible. And this Sunday is Easter, and in this Sunday we're going to have our last message in the Gospel of Mark. Now, the event of Easter, even though that happened some 2,000 years ago, that was a turning point for our world. No joke. I'm not kidding at all. In fact, this was the biggest turning point, and this is the biggest reason for hope our world has ever had. Mark gives us an astounding message, and Jesus does also, in the proclamation of the resurrection of the dead. That there is someone with the power and the authority to completely defeat the forces of evil in our world, whether they be natural or human or spiritual. That one day our world is going to be a very different place where there will be belonging and significance like this world has never known, where there will be harmony and well-being and safety that our present world doesn't know, the kind of victory and world happiness and peace and flourishing that we long for. So I want to invite you to be a part of our gathering on this Sunday to celebrate Easter, and for us to delve into what Mark says can be a good turning point in our lives right now. So please join us this Sunday.